Well, we have a pretty bombshell day to discuss for you from Donald Trump's first criminal trial in Manhattan, where Stormy Daniels herself took the stand and dropped some bombs that we'll go through. Some fascinating, salacious, as lots of people have been saying, details came out of this testimony. Of course, Stormy Daniels being the adult film actress that had the alleged affair with Donald Trump at the center of all of this, that not being the illegal part, but instead the attempt to pay her off, then cover up the fact that that may have been a violation of campaign finance law with the falsification of business records to cover it up. So I want to bring in our legal expert, Aaron Parnas, to discuss. I'll play some clips. We'll look at Trump's response during one of these breaks. And apparently he was visibly irritated throughout Stormy Daniels' testimony. But before even getting to the testimony itself, Aaron, it seemed like Trump was panicking beforehand that she was going to be taking the stand.
Yeah, Luke, he was panicking from early morning, and I mean really early morning. This morning, Donald Trump's team were first notified by the district attorney's office that Stormy Daniels was going to be the next witness in the case against him. And upon finding that out, Donald Trump put out a post on Truth Social saying, quote, let me read it. The exact statement. He said, "I have just recently been told who the witness is today. This is unprecedented. No time for lawyers to prepare. No judge has ever run a trial in such a biased and partisan way. He is crooked and highly conflicted, even taking away my First Amendment rights." And then he went on to just continue his complaints. But that Truth Social post was quickly deleted after the public found out that Stormy Daniels was going to be the next witness in the case. And it's interesting. I think either Donald Trump thought his morning post may have violated the gag order that Judge Merchan previously imposed, or his attorneys told him to take it down for whatever reason. But obviously Trump was panicked this morning upon finding out that Daniels was going to be the next witness, Luke.
So I want to go through for the audience, if you haven't been keeping up with this, the testimony, just a quick recap from what I gained watching the reporting about it, what she was going through on the stand. And some of this to me is more of a political nightmare for Trump, and I'll explain that in a second. And then I'll also talk with Aaron about the legal implications of this. So again, the affair, this is not what's alleged to be illegal, but it's at the center of this because it's what was trying to be covered up in the payment. And so Stormy Daniels did have a chance to go through, and this part could be politically damaging to Trump because now everyone's talking about these details again, the affair that she had allegedly with Donald Trump. So she talks about meeting him at this golf tournament. She didn't really want to go to dinner with him, but then she did, thinking maybe she could get on The Apprentice. That's when Trump was starring in The Apprentice, describes being in Trump's hotel room, goes through the fact that they had sex. And to me, this helps to establish all the details she was providing, gives her more credibility because it seems she's really recounting this very accurate event that took place and remembered some interesting details just for fun. This is not because of legality. This is for fun. This is not a courtroom. While in the hotel room, she said that Trump noted that he and Melania don't sleep in the same bedroom, so it doesn't really matter that I'm cheating on her. She spanked him with a magazine for not being polite enough during their sort of pre-sex conversation. Trump said that Daniels, oh gosh. So you know how we talk about the weird thing Trump has said about Ivanka Trump? Apparently, during this conversation before engaging in their sexual activity, Trump said that Daniels reminded him of his daughter, Ivanka. That's wonderful. And then she described the moment that she came out of the restroom and Trump was in his boxers posing on the bed. And before we get to cross-examination, all that, explain, Aaron, sort of, first of all, why would they even want to get into these details if it's not illegal? Why would she go through all those different details? And also the way that the judge was wanting the prosecution and Daniels herself to stop going into so much detail by the end of that.
Yeah, so Stormy Daniels really didn't provide a ton of new information that the public didn't already know regarding this possible affair with Trump. She added some context and some detail to it, but the reason why all of that testimony was necessary was because part of the reason, or rather part of the allegations that the prosecution brings in this case, is that Donald Trump engaged in this catch and kill scheme, paid off $130,000 worth to Stormy Daniels in an effort to hide her story from the public because he thought that this extramarital affair would be damaging to him in the 2016 election. And overall, that right there would be kind of the election violation that prosecutors are alleging. So they needed context from Stormy Daniels herself about why the allegations would be so damaging if they got out during the 2016 election. Now, Judge Merchan made clear, especially as it related to several of the sexual allegations, that Stormy Daniels should not go into super detail because in trial, or really in any case, criminal or civil, you have what is called evidence that is prejudicial versus evidence that is probative. If evidence is too prejudicial to a defendant such that it would inflame the passions of the jury, it would just be brought in just to embarrass Trump, for example, then it wouldn't be allowed in because it's highly more prejudicial than it is probative, meaning that it is relevant or not. So a lot of the more nuanced details about the affair and about the sexual encounter are not relevant to whether or not the testimony was going to be, or the allegations were going to be damaging. So Judge Merchan kept a lot of that out. And this morning, Stormy Daniels really towed the line in a number of areas. Judge Merchan was not super happy and was receptive to some arguments from Todd Blanche, Trump's attorneys, over a possible mistrial if it continued. Now, luckily for everyone involved, it stopped in the latter half of her testimony. But still, Stormy Daniels should not have gone into some of her tangents about the sexual encounter and some other things.
Yeah, and it was just interesting hearing the anecdotes from in the courtroom of her talking really quickly and the judge asking her to slow down and seeming nervous, and then just sort of, like you said, going on random tangents. But I'm sure it's kind of hard to know where that line is, because you want to give enough details so people know that you really did have a story that would be damaging, because it would have been incredible, and thus Trump's scheme makes a whole lot more sense to cover it up. I think one of the things you're talking about that they didn't want to get focused too much on was the way that Stormy Daniels classifies this as something she didn't really want to do. Now, she makes clear that she's not accusing Trump of sexual assault, but she did feel sort of weird that she got put in that situation. And that was something the judge didn't want, it seemed, to be focused on, for obvious reasons, because that's not at the center of the potential illegality here. One thing that I thought in her testimony that is really harmful to Trump is it seemed like she was able to establish that before the campaign, in conversations in 2007 that they were having, Trump was not concerned really with people knowing about it. Speakerphone conversations talking to her. And then obviously he was much more concerned during the campaign season, all the way fast forwarding to 2016, which again reveals this wasn't just about protecting his wife from hearing about it. It was potentially a majority concern about the political campaign, Aaron.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And I think that her testimony overall was definitely helpful to prosecutors. I think in the afternoon session on cross-examination, the defense really did land some punches, though. I think when Donald Trump's attorneys got up there and began cross-examining her, they really elicited a lot of bias from Stormy Daniels, especially as it relates to a judgment that Daniels owes to Trump for attorney's fees in a case that in a previous lawsuit she brought against Trump. She lost the lawsuit, and although the lawsuit was dismissed, Stormy Daniels was ordered to pay attorney's fees by both a district court and an appellate court, and she still owes those attorney's fees. And she previously has said that she will never pay Donald Trump and she'd rather go to prison than pay Donald Trump. And Trump's attorneys got that out on cross-examination, that she hates Donald Trump, that she wants to see Trump go to prison, that she doesn't want to pay him. So she elicited a lot of bias on cross-examination, definitely landed some punches. Now, Trump's attorneys did get a little flustered later in the cross-examination, but ultimately Stormy Daniels' testimony today is not going to move the needle with this jury one way or the other, because at the end of the day, it's really just to provide context to the allegations in the indictment. What's going to move the needle with the jury is really seeing those documents, the documents themselves, is hearing Trump's voices on these recordings with Michael Cohen and others. That's what's going to move the needle for the jury at the end of the day. Stormy Daniels is just a fact witness to provide some more color to the allegations.
Right. So that's why I think this is such a damaging day for Trump, where he's thinking as much about the political as the legal, as we see time and time again with his violations of the gag order, because he wants to say stuff for political purposes. And so I think politically this is a disaster for him, because like you said, we knew a lot of this, but all the reporting is about the salacious details, reminding people that the Party of Family Values is nominating this guy who, while his wife had just had a child, he was engaged in an affair allegedly with this porn star. And that's not a great look for Trump. Again, it doesn't seem to sway the Party of Family Values voters too much, but I don't think that helps him politically. But then any wins that the defense could have gotten in cross-examination aren't actually going to be that significant legally, because she's not at the center of the illegality. Moore was establishing that part of the story that relates to it. And then I do think, and I agree, it wasn't a great look that she said all sorts of negative things about Trump, because it can seem sort of biased. But on those elements, I think it, or I should say a different way, she seemed credible on the story that she was there to tell. No one assumed that she would know a lot about the actual falsification of business records and things to that effect. And so she got her story out. Yes, she said she hates Trump, but I don't think that'll impact it too much. Any other details that people should be aware of?
I mean, not too many others. I think the one big takeaway here is that, kind of like you've been saying, Luke, that this was a big loss for Trump in the court of public opinion, but not necessarily a loss for him in the courtroom. In a lot of ways, it was a wash today, and it will be a wash for so long as she's on the witness stand and doesn't give us something completely brand new. But I will say one other thing is that Stormy Daniels' testimony really pierced Trump in ways that we haven't really seen thus far. He has really personally been offended by her testimony, especially as it relates to the sexual encounter and his wife, Melania Trump. I think that I would not be surprised if Donald Trump were to go ahead and violate the gag order imposed by Judge Merchan because of today's testimony. So we need to be watching his Truth Social and public statements as well following today, because he really seemed more irritated than before.
Yeah, and to my earlier point, he must see the political damage too, because in all of these other testimonies, he's been really disengaged, reportedly, potentially sleeping. At least his eyes have been shut constantly. But this one, reportedly, he was super engaged, mumbling on certain things. I think, as you mentioned, when the sleeping in different bedrooms point came up, he grumbled to his lawyer, and he was nudging his lawyer, trying to get them to object to different things. So this testimony, for whatever reason, got under his skin much more than others. And here is a quick clip of his response today.
So this was a very big day.
I'm going to pause your viewing of this video super quickly to ask you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just click that subscribe button, and right next to it is the join button, so you can become a member to get the daily bonus show by clicking that join button. Back to the video.
A very revealing day. As you see, their case is totally falling apart. They have nothing on books and records, and even something that should bear very little relationship to the case. It's just a disaster for the DA, for the Soros-backed DA. It's a disaster. This whole case is just a disaster. If you read the legal scholars, you'll see, because they're writing about it, they've never seen anything quite like it. And neither have I.
So sort of what you'd expect from Trump there. And I think that's sort of your view into what happened today. We'll be talking more about the coming days in court, of course. And we always appreciate Aaron joining us. Aaron, where can people find you?
On all my social platforms, just add Aaron Parnas.